So let's talk about how to future-proof your career and business. But before we do that, we have to find out what could ruin it exactly, which is a slightly different approach. So now imagine, I know that this is, not the right question, but imagine that you have an evil plan as a leader and you really want to disengage your employees and undermine the future of the organization. How would you do it? How would you ruin your company? You can speak up, you can put it in the chat, just unleash your inner devil. I'm really curious. Later on, I'm going to show you some interesting insights. How would you ruin it? What would you do? Demotivate my team, micromanaging them. I see that. I can imagine that. Fully ignore them, okay? Spread fear, rumor, okay? Giving my team a hard time. Unsafe, psychologically safe, disorganized, bully my colleagues. Okay. What else would you do? Suppose that everybody knows everything. That's interesting. Send confused communication message organization-wide. Pretty good. No reward for competent team and high performers. I don't know if these are memories or this is your idea. Provide people lack of qualification. Okay, so collectively, definitely we could destroy the company. So that's pretty clear. Because often the highest level of growth is when we stop wasting our potential, and that is really important. But now we know what ruins it, kind of, but do we have a future? That's the question. We don't know what the future holds, but we know the trends shaping it, let's be honest. By 2030, there's going to be a global talent shortage of 85 million people. This is predictable, which means that it's getting more and more difficult to attract and engage talent. So if you look at the demographics, this is healthy. It's like a pyramid, lots of young people and a few old ones. That's healthy. But if you look at some of the more developed regions like the US and Europe, it looks like a Christmas tree. And that's concerning because this is the maximum of people, not the minimum. It can be less, but not more. You cannot clone a bunch of 20-year-olds if you need them. But if you look at, for example, China or Japan, it's even more serious and urgent. It's a real Christmas tree. This is predictable. It's getting more difficult to find the right people because we have less and less. So what is the solution? Can we replace everyone with AI? Is that the solution? Because now everybody talks about ChatGPT and robots, and maybe they can do that. But that's not necessarily true, because AI was designed, at least officially, to be smarter than us. So they can do what we do, but they can do it better and more quickly. But according to Yuval Noah Harari, it's more like an alien intelligence. It doesn't mean that they're extraterrestrial. It just means that they don't think like people. And they can come up with ideas that have nothing to do with the way we think. And that can catch us off guard. So I don't know if you know this game called Go. It's really popular, especially in Asia. It's been around for 2,500 years, long time. Millions and millions of people played it, really smart people. Complete business plans and philosophies were built around it. So technically, there was nothing to discover, nothing to explore. That's what we thought so, until AlphaGo, the AI, appeared. And in a few days, it managed to be the human champion. And we had to realize that we know a tiny, tiny fraction of what this model is capable of. It wasn't thinking like us. It was completely alien. And this shift can happen in the financial industry, the pharmaceutical industry, everywhere. Are we ready for that? That is the question. So what are the different levels of AI? Because it's such an important topic and it's a buzzword as well. So if you look at level 1, let's use the example of a coffee machine. Level 1, you ask the machine, make me a coffee, and you get it. Technically, that's not AI, but it looks impressive. Level two is when the coffee machine sees you and says, you look really bad and tired. Do you want a coffee? When they suggest something, so they learn and improve and they offer a solution. But the really terrifying option is when they make up something for you. I made a new coffee. I think you would like it. When they start creating. Now, that's the difficult part. That is the unpredictable part. So if we know that they are better than us, or at least smarter than us, what is our superpower? And this is when people come up with, ooh, empathy. That makes us human. We are so much better. That's not exactly true, because there was a really interesting experiment. And let's be honest, we lost 24 out of 26 topics. AI was more empathetic, more patient, and smarter than human doctors. It doesn't mean that they can replace them, but empathy might not be our superpower. AI is not going to get tired. It's not going to get angry, and that helps. So how can they complement us? If there is a job that requires information in and out, just processing, that is ready to be replaced. But if you need social skills and motor skills and you need to use all three of them, that is much more future-proof. So for example, having a consultation with someone one-on-one online, that's easy. And you can prescribe medicine. But if you have to change the bandage on a crying 5-year-old girl while the parents are standing around her, now that's different. That's not going to be replaced. You need something special for it. So what we should be teaching leaders now to prepare for the future? This is a really practical question. This is what Jacob Morgan asked a few years ago, 140 top CEOs and 14,000 employees. Then he analyzed it and he published The Future Leader. He came up with 4 mindsets and 5 skills. I changed the names a little bit to make them descriptive based on his description. So it was growth mindset, teamwork, inclusion, global mindset. In terms of skills, coaching, innovation, communication, self-awareness, and also technology. As you can see, 8 out of the 9 skills and mindsets are directly linked to how much you understand yourself and others. It's all about people skills. AI is 1 out of 9. That's not the solution. It can contribute to the decline or the growth of a team, depending on their people skills. It's that important. People skills are not soft, they are not optional, they are hardcore business skills. So if I know that they are so important, the next logical question, which is the best solution? Let's Google it. In less than a second, you get more than 3 billion results. You click on any of them, and they promise that they are the best thing in the world. You're lucky to work with them. You see a lot of logos, promises. You click on it. Are you going to get the results? That is the question. Do you get what you pay for, what you hope for? If you look at the burnout report 2023, you can see that the burnout rate is up by 50% compared to the previous years when it comes to young people between 18 and 34, entry-level employees, and senior managers. Up by 50%. Something is not working. But luckily, employee engagement is plummeting as sharply as burnout is skyrocketing. It's not that what they are investing in is not working, but it's making things worse. Is that a good investment? Is that going to future-proof your business? Unlikely. One of the main problems is that this is not a result. Often the evaluation is based on how entertaining something was, how much somebody loved the workshop, which is fantastic, but we are not in the business of entertainment. It has to be valuable. This is not a result. A result is measurable and transparent. If it's not, then it's not a result. Here's an example. This is what experts do. There was a Fortune 500 automotive company global leadership team. As you can see, they scored really low on psychological safety and motivational drivers. So these are the people who need to engage and motivate hundreds of people. It's not really ideal. but we can quantify it. Psychological safety is 32%, motivation is 38%. We have to measure something so we can diagnose it. Guessing is not an option. 3 months later, most of them were in the growth zone, scoring high on psychological safety and motivation as well. We can see exactly how much they improved. You can also break it down. And you can see that, yeah, it improved everywhere, but somewhere you have a tension score, a high attention score, which doesn't mean that it's all about creative tension. No, it's not good. It shows how polarized the team is. But that's exactly what we need to do. We have to understand what the root causes are so we can address them. This is what experts do. That's how you can increase performance. I don't know if you remember this. It was 2004 in Thailand. There was a young girl, Tilly Smith. She was 10 years old. And she saw that something weird is changing in the water. And she thought, tsunami is coming. And she started panicking. She learned about it 2 weeks prior to the holiday, but nobody listened to her. The parents said, just be quiet. But luckily, an English-speaking Japanese man heard the conversation and he said, yeah, I heard something happened in Sumatra. There was an earthquake. And then they evacuated the beach. Everybody survived. And that was the biggest disaster in 2004. 230,000 people died in the Indian earthquake. But there, every single one of them survived. So the reason why I'm telling you about this, because all the signs are here as well, that a problem is coming, a tsunami is coming. All the signs are there. But a lot of people are putting their head in the sand and they don't want to notice it. So you have options. Or we wake up and then we realize that we have to do something, we have to be proactive, or we just wait and hope for the best. This webinar is not about telling you what to think. It's about presenting the situation from very different perspectives with up-to-date data. So you can ask better questions and you can make better decisions. That is the goal. There is a perfect storm coming. It's predictable. It's also the fourth turning, if that's how you want to think. Because there's a war for talent to win in the marketplace. It's all about people. How can you get ready for it? So what is getting in your way and risking the future of your business? That's the question. Because maybe future-proofing your business means that we get rid of the risk, or we minimize them, or we try to mitigate them, if we are willing to pay attention. So it's not just a good idea. We have hundreds of licensed partners in more than 50 countries. It's used by Fortune 500 companies, national governments, and all universities, and a lot of other businesses as well. So everything that I'm going to share with you is based on research and practical experience. So there are three main reasons why companies spend a lot of money on risking their future. And it's called the dark triad of future risking solutions. It sounds dark because kind of it is. So first one is outdated and disconnected solutions. The second member, guess and hope-based solutions. The third one, feels good but makes no difference solutions. So the idea is try to get to know them and now try to reflect on what you invest in or what you used before. What was the outcome? Because once you have a label, then you can notice it. So the first one is outdated and disconnected solutions. These are the ones that are optimizing something that shouldn't exist anymore. Because most of the models that we are using today were created by people who were born just after the American Civil War in the 19th century. But let's be honest, the world completely changed. And different challenges require different solutions. When those models were created, less than 17% of the value was created by humans. They were seen as a cost to contain. Today, it's more than 90%. It's completely different. But we are using those ideas. Just because they were good or they were the best practices, they might not be the best ones anymore because the world changed. Just think about it. Would you take your Cybertruck to a blacksmith to fix it? Very unlikely. But what if this guy publishes a lot on LinkedIn and he said, oh, we have to talk about Cybertrucks. Well, I'm really passionate about this. But does he have the expertise and the tools? That's a different question. Passion is not enough on its own. So do you think that many consultants, coaches, and trainers have up-to-date expertise and tools to measure and optimize the biomarkers of high performance in your team? Check it out. You would be surprised. But if you look at the second member of the triad, guess and hope-based solutions, how do you optimize something that you cannot see? Now, if you click on any of those results, finding the best people solution, and you ask them, are your programs useful or valuable or entertaining? They would say, off the chart, best thing in the world. But then, if you take a reality check, you have to realize that they are barely useful or entertaining. This is what the MIT Sloan Management Reviews revealed in 2024. They wanted to understand why most programs have negative ROI, not zero, negative. And one of the main reasons was that nobody measured the impact on the people who mattered the most to the team. Often they chose a program based on how entertaining or informative it was. And sometimes they chose a program based on packaging. It's almost like a corporate Tinder profile. Swipe left or right. Was it entertaining or valuable? It's not the same thing. But we don't know that immediately. So according to white people in 2023, they wanted to understand what are the challenges of the hybrid environment in the UK. And what they came up with is that only 30% of companies collected data about employee engagement and 0% measured psychological safety or inclusion. 0%. But this is a country where you have twice as many D&I workers than in any other countries. But nobody measured inclusion, which is the psychological need, the basic psychological need that can unlock the benefits of diversity. Nobody. Maybe it's not a surprise that employee engagement in the UK is around 10%. But the other thing is that often we try to motivate people based on what we think we should do. So if you look at, for example, the employee engagement programs, companies spend insane amount of money on them, trying to motivate people. But according to research 2024, they analyzed 90 different interventions, and only one of them had a slightly positive impact. Volunteer work, nothing else. So you can give people yoga classes, but that's about entertainment. It has nothing to do with engagement. Nothing. This is what the data shows. So I'm not saying that we don't need them. The question is, are you using it for the right reasons? Are you getting the return on your investment? The third member is feels good but makes no different solutions. So I'm pretty sure that most of you know about growth mindset. And if you ask people, we have it, definitely. But even according to Carol Dweck, who coined the term, you can have off-the-chart growth mindset. But if your environment is not psychologically safe, it's not nurturing, it has zero benefit. Now, of course, it's great to attend the course and then, 1 day, 2 days growth mindset, we love it, we have it. But then if you go back to a toxic environment, it has zero benefit. Indeed, it can be negative because it just highlights the gap between how you should feel and how you feel. So the net outcome is negative. So how could we create the right environment? This is the question. Because we know the dark triad members, they try to ruin the business. But how can I create the right environment? So this is the post that went viral on LinkedIn, one of them, because a lot of people resonated with it. That often the problem is crystal clear, the solution as well, but then in the middle you have people. And everybody has a different agenda, different perspective. And then somehow things are not going to get done. And that is frustrating. So what can we do about that? We have to focus on psychological safety. And a lot of people talk about this now, but it's not a new topic. In 1788, They introduced the Chimney Sweeper Act in the UK because they realized that the minimum age to become a chimney sweeper apprentice was 4 years old, and people got really agitated that that's not right. There should be duty of care. So 250 years, bam, you have the same health and safety categories in almost every country. But not long ago, they added a fifth category, psychosocial one, because they realized that an attack on your psychological safety can cause more issues and more damage than a slap in the face or a broken bone. But because it was invisible, it was more difficult to optimize it and even more difficult to prove that something happened. But psychological safety is the number one trait of high-performing teams. This is what Google research revealed. The number one trait of high-performing teams. So where is your team on this dimension? This is what I usually ask leaders when we have a meeting. Where is your team? Where was your team last year, before and after they attended a selection of programs? How do you know it was a good investment? Very basic questions. And they cannot answer the question. They held the evaluation straight after the programs. They loved the workshop. Good. Was it a good investment? How would they score on this? As a person who is responsible for the success of the company, we should be able to answer this question. But on its own, it's not enough. You also need motivation. But what is that exactly? Daniel Pink has a really interesting take on it. He talks about the evolution of motivation. 1.0, very primal. Make babies, survive. But then, when we had to learn how to interact with other people, we had to upgrade it to motivation 2.0, which is about the pain and pleasure principle, the carrot and the stick. Pain and pleasure, we have to avoid it. This is what we need. But now the problem is that we get used to everything, which means that you have to reward and punish people more and more to get the same results. But also what the research shows is that when it comes to creativity and strategy, it actually backfires. Not that it doesn't work, it backfires. So if you want to unlock the potential, you have to tap into the intrinsic motivators. These are the ones that are coming from inside when you do something for the sake of the process. Like Chris Voss said, the FBI negotiator, there's no such thing as logical, only what matters to someone. Meaning that if you really want to motivate someone, you have to understand what drives them so you can create that motivating environment around them. But that might be very different from your best practice. This is where common sense and good intention can backfire. So based on this very simple question, where is your team? Would they be in the growth zone, scoring high on psychological safety and motivation? Apathy zone, scoring low on both? Maybe the comfort zone where you have safety but no motivation, or in the anxiety where people are working hard but they don't feel safe. The Netflix CEO made it very clear. We are not a family. We are a team, a high-performing team, which means it has to be safe but also motivated, which means that we have high standards. People need to step up. We are not a family. You don't put your employees or your kids on furlough. You don't do that usually. But here's the challenge. Sometimes numbers can lie, or at least they can hide the truth. So maybe as a team, you're in the growth zone. But if you look at the individuals, you might realize that they are extremely polarized. Some people are like fish in the water. Others feel rejected and demotivated. So how's that possible within the same environment? To be honest, we don't know. The assessments can provide the data only, but people have the insights. And that's exactly our goal, to create meaningful conversations driven by data and rooted in science. Because as soon as you can quantify it, you can measure it, it becomes real. It's not just be nice to people, 5 steps to create psychological safety. No, that doesn't really work. You can make it much more concrete. We also had a case study in Scandinavia. The senior leadership team, including the CEO, scored really low on both dimensions. And during our program, one of the refineries burned down. Not a good case study, but a better one. That was the biggest mining company in Indonesia. They had 17 accidents a week, according to the company. And 6 months later, they had zero. They turned psychological safety into physical safety, and they won the most prestigious awards in this category. It's not optional. But if you really want to take it to the highest level, you need cognitive diversity. This is the immune system of a team, the invisible layer, technically the only layer that has proven benefit in terms of performance. And this is not a topic where you can rely on common sense and good intention. For example, 86% of managers think they're inspirational. They are fantastic. But then again, you check reality. 82% of workers think, no, they're not. They are extremely uninspiring. It doesn't mean they are not good. They are just not aware of this topic. Or 93% of leaders think that they are excellent communicators. 91% of employees think they are lacking basic communication skills. How come there's such a big disconnect? And what if they are not aware of it? Here's an interesting case study. This is one of the strongest forces in team dynamics that probably you don't really talk about. It's called homophilic diversity. Yes, it does sound like a disease, but it just means that we like and trust people who are similar to us. It's very primal because the brain likes it when something is predictable, when we are in the comfort zone. For example, this was 10 senior leaders from 8 different countries, seemingly really diverse. A group picture would look fantastic on the website, but deep inside, cognitive diversity was 22%, meaning that if you look at the sliding scales as a range of perspectives, all the 10 people were within this range. They had a very similar way of thinking, which means they also have a huge blind spot. So maybe they agree immediately and it feels right, but it doesn't mean that it's true. So here's the question. Where is your team in terms of the 4 stages of growth? Are they in the growth zone when they score high on all the 3 dimensions? Are they stage 2, time bomb, when they have issues with one of the invisible forces? Is it decline when they have problems with 2? Or stage 4, game over? Hopefully still not game over. You can still do something about it. We had a case study like that. Maybe it's not pleasant, but as soon as you can see the numbers, you can diagnose it, you can make a more informed decision. Therefore, you get better results. Have you ever heard about the infinite monkey theorem? It's a really weird case study or example. So I don't know, I think it's just philosophy. So the idea is that if you give enough time to a random team of monkeys, then one day maybe they would come up with the complete works of Shakespeare, because so many random things and everything is possible. So that was the theory, which sounds like, oh yeah, multiple universes, and it's great. Yeah, let's just think. But then in 2002, there was a research, they replicated it. And do you know what happened? It didn't go well. Because for some reason, the monkeys prefer the letter S. They pressed it a lot. One of them decided to bash the laptop with a stone. And then one of them really had to go to the toilet, but they chose the computer and they were answering the call of nature on the computer. So it didn't go well. The reason why I'm talking about this, because in theory, everything is possible and maybe we get good results, but you can get much better results much more quickly if you do the right thing. If you have a proven process, if you have a blueprint, and if you're not guessing, but using what works. So we need the right skills to make it happen. What is cultural intelligence for you? Why do you think that it's important if it is? I'm curious. Do you think, what's your definition? Why do you think it's important if it is? It's an often misunderstood topic. What is cultural intelligence? Understanding the multiple perspectives, practical. Knowing differences, you can create a strong team using the strengths. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, exactly. So it's more than just countries. So if you think about it, when it comes to people, there are two main approaches. One is intercultural or international solutions, explaining what is normal and expected in a country. And you find a lot of models, and then they think, oh, now I understand German people. Hold on a second. Because if you look at actual research, up-to-date research, more than 80% of cultural differences exist within countries, not between them. We all belong to 15 or 20 culture groups at the same time, and the poorest container of culture is country of origin, gender, and generation. Meaning that based on these categories, you cannot predict an individual's values and beliefs. That has nothing to do with science. If you move to a country, yes, it makes sense to learn about what people are used to. But if your success depends on how well you understand an individual in front of you, your client, your colleague, your boss, your partner, that can be truly, truly misleading. So with bigger confidence, you make bigger mistake. And here's an example. So we worked with a big German company and they employed a lot of Brazilian engineers and we had to create a high-performing team. So of course we started with the German and the Brazilian approach, huge differences. But when they completed the assessment, it turned out that those Brazilian engineers were much more German inside than most Germans. And this is when everything changed. It was like a psychological permission for them that, yes, this is the right environment in terms of country and also profession. Yes, of course, they have to learn how to buy a bus ticket. But on the cognitive level, it was the right environment. So instead of highlighting non-existent differences, we created a common ground so they can learn how to make the most of their differences. But the other approach is psychometric models, and a lot of people have their favorite ones. Talking about personalities. So imagine that you're profiling a beautiful sunflower and you know everything about it. But where do you stick it? In the snow, in the desert, in the middle of the jungle, or maybe in the right environment? Depending on where you put it, you get a very, very different outcome. Because your personality determines how you want to behave, but your environment determines how you have to behave. You cannot separate the two. This is what Carol Dweck said as well. Yes, you can have growth mindset, but the toxic environment is going to drown you. And there's not going to be positive environment or outcome. So for example, this is what Global Dis does. It removes the illusion between personality and culture. It doesn't combine them. It removes the illusion of separation. Because once you take the assessment, we can go into the 3 layers of your identity. What you do, how, and why. 95% of our actions are driven by this. Yet often we are unaware of them. So it makes sense to get to know them. Once you know that, then we can measure the mindset gap between you, what is natural to you, and what is normal and expected around you. We can measure the mindset gap between you and another person. If you're brave enough, you can do it with your partner at home. The underlying concept is exactly the same. You can also measure the gap between a leader and the team. And it can quickly reveal how come they try their best, but somehow it backfires, and how they could change. So the question is, how can you unlock the potential in your team? You need to choose the right experts. And often it's difficult because people use really fancy titles. But here's the framework for it. Level 1, fake experts. So that's more about virtue signaling, talking about an important topic. They don't even believe in it, but they use it for marketing purposes. That's not useful. Level 2, experts who present. They have knowledge about the topic, and they have a workshop or a keynote speech no matter what. Then level 3, experts who research. So these are the ones who have some kind of tools. They are really smart, but they don't want to share the spotlight. They want to be the hero who slays the dragon. That's really important for them. So it's not about fixing something, but it's about being the hero. And then you have level 4 experts, data-driven. They're up to date, they have tools, they have the expertise, and they understand that you have to create synergy, because when you combine that spotlight and you shine it onto the problem, then you get much better results, because that's important. Fixing something, not the personal journey. We know that if you invest in the wrong type of expert, it can cost you a lot of money. We know that leaders account for at least 70% of employee engagement. So let's invest in leaders. Really good business for the providers. In the US, they spent billions in 2023. Was it a good outcome? Not really. Because employee engagement is back to the level where it was more than 10 years ago. And the people who don't even leave can often cause much more damage than the ones who left. That's not a good investment. So what can you do? Step 1, identify if any of the dark triad members are within your organization. Now you have a name, you have a label, you understand how they work. You can identify them. They are not your friends. Then first create the right environment. High on psychological safety, motivation, and cognitive diversity. This is where the highest level of growth happens. And develop the right skills to unlock that potential. Use data-driven solutions. Just remember, if you cannot measure it, visualize it, then it's very difficult to optimize it. Results are measurable and transparent. If they are not results. They have to be valuable, not entertaining, or not just entertaining at least. And this is something that we do because sustainability and innovation are really important. So we work with companies very differently. We don't want them to be dependent on us. So for example, if we know that leaders are so important, why don't we give them the right tools, the expertise? It's not about blaming them or shaming them. No, it's about supporting them so they can have the right tools. Level 1, the leadership edge. They learn how to optimize psychological safety and motivational drivers, but we do it in a way that we train the leaders, and by the time they finish, 2 or 3 HR or L&D leaders are going to be fully certified. So they have their own online portal, they can administer the assessment, and then the leaders are skilled to facilitate the conversations. There's no guessing. If you want to take it to the highest level, you also add cognitive diversity to it, because that is the immune system of the teams. So it's all about developing leaders who create a culture where growth is inevitable in a sustainable way to maximize your ROI. That is the goal. And I asked you a really important question in the beginning, and for some reason we got much better answers than I expected. Don't know if it's a good news or bad news, but I asked this question, ChatGPT. What would you do? First one, suppress psychological safety. So employees become defensive, disengage, they don't contribute. Step 2, micromanagement. Monitor them so they lose motivation as well. Step 3, favoritism, nepotism. We like that. I've got my favorite ones. They get everything. The superstars get away with anything. Undermine growth and development. Don't train them so they don't grow. Communicate poorly or not at all. You saw the examples. And also, short-term gains. Don't think long-term. It's all about tactical decisions that can lead to strategic losses. So this is what an evil leader would do. But surprisingly, we see the same thing when we do the team scan. Often we see the same behaviors. And let's be honest, it doesn't matter if you do it intentionally or unintentionally. The outcome is unfortunately the same. It's risking the future of the business. But luckily, there is a blueprint. There is a proven process. And if you need help with it, let us know.